Another season, another apocalypse, another final season, another disappointment. Oh boy. Endings, right? Hey guys, I'm Jackson. This is my spoiler review for the final season of The Umbrella Academy, which I didn't like very much. I didn't like this season at all in some ways. There are some highlights which we will briefly touch on, but mostly I found this to be a painfully unsatisfying, underwhelming, and plain just kinda dumb final season. I think there are 5 key reasons why this is easily the worst season, this is a bad season of TV, and this is a really unpleasant way to end the series. Number 5, 6 episodes. The first and most obvious reason why this season did not work for me is just how rushed and brief and underdeveloped it all was. Netflix clearly hates this show, allegedly, and didn't want to give it the budget or time to finish the show properly, allegedly. So this season we get 6 episodes instead of the usual 10 episodes, and oh boy, do you feel it. Oh my lord, this show is so rushed, everything is so brief, everything feels so painfully underdeveloped that it makes everything feel either unnecessary or when we're spending certain time with certain people, you're just like, we don't have time for that right now because there's only 6 episodes. Every single plot felt like it was suddenly just racing towards the finish line. After starting out so strong where all of the team are together on one big mission together, I really didn't like the idea of separating them all. Feels like something you could totally do when there's 10 episodes and everyone separates, and then for the last 3 or 4 episodes you bring them all back after they've all done their little side missions. But none of the side missions felt like they were developed properly. They all felt so rushed. They all felt so pointless. So they didn't feel like great character journeys and character arcs for everyone to go on. It felt like frustrating side missions that we did not have time for in this truncated final season. Number 4, the villain, or lack thereof. This season I presumed, and I presume everybody else presumed, the villain was going to be Sir Reginald Hargreaves. You know, the lizard man, the bug alien lizard man living in the human flesh suit. I thought the secret lizard man who reset the universe and then was standing on top of a tower, clearly in control of everything, was gonna be the villain of the season. But like, not at all. Not even a little bit. I found this to be the most baffling decision. That's not true. I just realized I have 3 more points. I found this to be the 4th most baffling decision of the season. So Reginald Hargreaves throughout the entire series has been kind of quirky, mean, awful, and he's being like a real bad dad. But I feel like in the last couple of episodes of season 3, it was really setting him up to not just be some bad dad, he was killing them. He's like clearly the main villain, and there is so much baggage between him and his kids. There is so much emotional, juicy material to be mined from this relationship with him and his family. All of them have different beefs with him. All of them have the same kind of beef with him. There's so much to mine from this character. There's so much backstory I want to know. There's so much motivation, and there's just so much about him that I couldn't wait to see as the big bad of the show. Especially because at the end of season 3, he reset the universe and won. But like, he kind of didn't. He kind of reset the universe, but not really. He kind of just accidentally pushed them into some kind of other parallel universe, a different multiverse place, a different timeline. And so the Reginald that we see at the end of season 3 and throughout season 4 is just some guy, essentially. Sure, it's the same lizard man, but not even a little bit, because they didn't exist with powers in this universe. He doesn't know who they are. He didn't have that relationship with them. Essentially, every single moment with him as the dad, as this antagonistic force in their lives, isn't present, because he's just some guy. And I found that to be a baffling decision. Just so creatively boring, and it just felt so lazy, and it just felt so underwhelming and unsatisfying, because it's like, oh, but why were we even building this guy up to be this thing? Why even have him be this thing? Why not just have that he jumped across and, you know, like, oh sure, he died at the end of season 3, but just say that he didn't, I guess. I don't know, like, they reset the universe. Luther was dead, but now he's not. You take away any kind of emotional stakes, and there's just so much build-up for this one Reginald. But like, now it's just some other Reginald. And at times he says stuff like, well, that sounds like something maybe I would do, but you didn't do it. There are so many big reveals and moments with this character where it's like, oh wow, it would be so interesting if he was here to like have ramifications and consequences and have to deal with the children once they learn all these things. But like, it's just some other guy who's like, well, that wasn't me. Yeah, it wasn't him. He's just some old guy, essentially. So all of the drama and emotion and baggage that this Reginald has with our family is all just kind of weird and bizarre, and it all falls flat because it's just some other guy. It's just really disappointing and underwhelming because I was hoping for some kind of showdown, kind of payoffs for character moments between him and the family, and there's just so much juicy character work to be had there, but it all just kind of falls flat in a really weird, empty way. Like, there is a moment where Victor and Reginald have like a big moment, and they kind of have the most kind of character arc stuff, but it doesn't really work because Reginald's like, hey, well, I don't know who you are and I don't know why Reginald didn't like you, but I think you're actually pretty good, Victor. And Victor's like, that's what I've always wanted to hear from my Reginald. And it's nice that some random old guy who looks the same said it. Kind of just doesn't hold the emotional weight that it's meant to, that it would if that was the same Reginald. And he doesn't feel like he's the same as the other Reginald. He doesn't act the same. He's kind of a lot more submissive. He's got Mrs. Reginald Hargraves, who kind of feels like she's really the main character in like this story. She feels like she's driving things and making decisions and doing things. She's so active in this season. This Reginald doesn't have the same horrifying kind of hell-bent goals and like mysterious like motivations and all these things that made him so intriguing and terrifying but interesting. They're all just kind of gone because it's just some old guy who's like, well, this is all a bit crazy. What's going on? Why was it like this? Why was it like this? I hate it. The multiverse can be fun, but it can also get really messy and too much very quickly, which is what happens here. I don't think the show ever needed to jump into multiverses. It didn't need to do these separate timelines with all these different things. It's just one too many wrinkles that the show never needed to deal with. The show is about a family of superheroes who were born into the world via alien magical dust. The Earth is a diva and just doesn't have time for all this superpowered nonsense, and so it tries to kill itself. That's fun. Wait, is that fun? All I know is that's enough. That's enough. Also add on time travel, a little bit more time travel, and a little bit more time travel, and you've got enough. You've got a full show with enough going on. Add multiverses, just too much. I also cannot believe that we didn't get one scene or even a single frame of full bug, lizard man, alien Reginald. Like, we got so many glimpses, so many little tiny moments that I absolutely loved, but we didn't just get one final moment where we fully see him as what he would look like as a lizard alien man. Just super, super frustrating, disappointing, and just incredibly unsatisfying. I cannot believe they couldn't even afford to give us one single frame of that image. I was so curious. I've been so curious for so many years, and they just never showed us. Just so disappointing. I genuinely cannot believe that. Like, of all the decisions, that is one of the most insane to me. Because, like, what does he look like? I want to see him. Not to mention all of his motivations and all of that stuff that we could have gotten. Would have loved a full flashback episode with him kind of tracking his entire, like, character arc. That feels like a classic thing that we get with this type of character and this type of show. But no, we don't get anything. I think there's like a vague shot in the finale, but I just didn't really understand what was going on. I just felt so unclear as to what I was meant to get from that. I wanted more, and maybe it's more mysterious not knowing. I kind of would have liked to know more though, to be honest. Speaking of bad villains, I really loved Jean and Jean to start off with, like in the first couple of episodes, but by the end, I just felt like they didn't really add anything, they didn't bring anything to it. They felt like a carbon copy, home brand, cheap version of other iconic duo villains, trio villains that we've had in seasons 1 and 2. They just felt like they were trying to recapture that magic, but it just didn't go anywhere. And then by the end, Mrs. Lady Reginald was one of the Jeans, so it just felt like they weren't even part of it, and then just kills the other Jean. So it just kind of felt like, oh, they're not even going to be part of this big final climax. They felt like it was all set up and no payoff. And it once again reinforced the idea for me that we shouldn't have spent any time with Jean and Jean. I mean, we shouldn't have been doing timeline things, multiverses or whatever. Just get rid of all of that and focus on Reginald and Lady Reginald. Just focus on that and give us time for that. But no, have it all be a bit messy and all a bit vague and all a bit, in the end, pointless. Number 3, Five and Lila. No. So in the second last episode of this season, Five and Lila get stuck in timelines, multiverses or whatever. They get to that train place from the Matrix 3 and they're all like, oh no, we're lost in time multiverses or whatever. And they fall in love. No, gross, horrible. So I think the concept of this could have been something really interesting. Five goes through a similar thing he went through before, but it's with someone else this time. But having it be Lila, having it be his brother Diego's wife, and them falling in love just feels wrong and gross and horrible. And to have them fall in love just feels like a betrayal of his character. It feels like a betrayal of the entire theme and arc of his character and the theme of the show, of family, and in the end doing anything for family. It's the same thing with Allison kind of becoming a villain at the end of season 3. It just kind of doesn't work. The whole thing about this show is these 7 misfits, no matter how different they are, no matter how much they fight and argue, are a family. And at the end of the day, they'll do anything for each other. Particularly Five, who, like, the whole point of his character is how much he loves his family and how he's going to keep doing anything he can to get back to his family, to save his family. And so you end the series with him betraying Diego. Like, the series ends with him and Diego dying, hating each other, like loathing each other. It's just like really gross and off, and it doesn't work. It kind of feels like character assassination. I don't understand why they would do this. This doesn't feel like an issue with a truncated season or like being rushed and underdeveloped. They spend plenty of time for that full episode and a bit stuck there. Like, you really get the sense that they're stuck there. It's not like we needed more time for it to work. It just was never going to work. It's just a plot point that should never have happened. It kind of disgusts me. It fills me with like this really unpleasant feeling. Like, Five was always one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character, along with Klaus, who also gets ruined. But it just feels like, why give him this romantic love interest? It could have been a different character. It could have been a new character. Or you could have just had them be really close friends. And they come out of this, because they've always been very antagonistic throughout the whole show. And to really strengthen that friendship and make it this really tight emotional bond, really kind of cements her as the 8th member of the family. Or they could fall in love, and now 3 of the 8 of them hate each other, and it's messy and gross and weird. But I guess it doesn't matter, because they don't exist anyway. Number 2, miscellaneous things I didn't like. Did I suddenly realize that I'd kind of had 4 main points, but I started this video saying I had 5 points? 5 feels cleaner, but I don't actually really. I had 4 main points, but here's some miscellaneous things I didn't love. And maybe one I did. So they ruined Klaus this year. I really did not enjoy his germaphobe side plot. I also didn't enjoy his sex slave side plot. They just felt like weird side missions. It felt like he was just comic relief, but it wasn't funny. It lacked all of the rich emotional depth to the character that has been there in the previous 3 seasons. He has been the most interesting, the most devastating, the most powerful character. It's been such a fantastic journey. And this time, he felt like he was a parody of himself. It felt like they were just doing this one-trick pony where they're like, well, he doesn't want to die now because he used to die all the time. Do you get it? And 1 episode at the start, sure. But throughout the whole season, and then suddenly just turning it on a dime, and he's just this sex slave for the last couple of episodes, just pointless, unnecessary, and worst of all, unfunny, and it just kind of ruined his character, and I didn't like him at all throughout the entire season, which sucks, because he was the best character, along with Five. It felt like they were aggressively trying to ruin the 2 best characters, and I just don't know why. Jennifer was okay, but her and Ben's plot was just so rushed, it just got to the end almost immediately, and I was just left wondering why I should care. I loved the fact that we found out Reginald actually killed Ben, and it ties into the beginning of the show, tying back into the final season. I thought all of that worked really, really well, but once again, because it's not actually Reginald, and it's just some guy we're hanging out with this season, the ramifications and the consequences of all the family finding out are non-existent. They're all like, how dare you? And he's like, that wasn't me? Great. Good stuff. Also, where is Sloane? Seriously, where is she? Number 1, the end. I hate this end with a passion. I did not like this end at all. I found the last 3 minutes of this show to be so shockingly unsatisfying, so underwhelming, so infuriatingly frustrating. It actually rubbed me the wrong way, in a way I have not experienced in a show for so very long, and I think it kind of fundamentally ruins the whole show, because it makes the whole show pointless. Like, just so pointless in a way. I can't remember another show ever doing it this badly. I dislike the Game of Thrones ending more, but that's not like one moment in the last 2 minutes that makes me go, oh, damn, I was having such a good time. It's like, no, there's like the last 8 episodes. Whereas in this show, it's just that final decision to not kill them, but to erase them from history so that they never actually existed. I am overwhelmed with a sense of just disbelief. It is a baffling, nonsensical madness. It's madness, and I don't understand why they ever thought this would be good or satisfying or enjoyable or tragically heartbreaking. It's just off. This whole season's been off, but this moment is just so much worse than the other moments. It left such a bad taste in my mouth. I felt like I needed to have a shower, but once I had that shower, I realized that like it wasn't something on my skin that I could rub off. It was like in my soul. Ugh, so unpleasant. So due to plot things or whatever, 5 is like, all right, the only way we can stop this endless cycle of us existing in the world being like, I don't like any of this, and doing an apocalypse, the only way to stop us saving and stopping the apocalypse and it just being this endless cycle is for us to not exist. I understand like the general idea of that. Like, it's not like I'm confused by like the logic, or at least the in-world logic. It's all nonsense. It's all hot nonsense. But I understand like the in-world logic. Well, they've caused this thing, so they've got to not exist. Sure, but if you're going to do that, you could just have them have the marriageable, the magic yellow dust or whatever. Just suck that out of them. Just suck that out of them so that they can survive but without their powers. If that's really the route you want to go down, even though I find that kind of also depressing and kind of sad. Like, I love characters that have superpowers because they're superpowers. And how do they deal with that and all that stuff? I don't like them losing their powers. That feels really sad and depressing and lame. But if that's what you want to do that. Or if you really want to have the tragic sacrifice where the only way to truly save the world once and for all from continuous apocalypses, they have to die. Okay, sure. I don't think that's the right decision either, but sure, if you want to kill them, kill them. But to decide to make them not exist, to erase them so that every single moment, the highs, the lows, everything to be completely pointless, and like to not have mattered in any way, and that it just never even happened in any way, is so bad. It's so ugly. It's so mean. It's just like, why did I bother watching the show then? Why did I bother following all these characters that I love? Because despite this season not working for me, I still watched it all and mildly enjoyed it because I just love these characters. I love these actors. I love this universe. But you just erase them from history. You erase those first 3 seasons. And that really just rubs me the wrong way. And then we get this comically over-the-top utopian green park where all of the side characters that you mildly remember to the ones you do remember are all just like hanging out in this park, and it's overly green and it's a comically perfect universe. And that also just kind of annoyed me because it's got all these characters and they're like, well, they sacrifice themselves so everyone can live in this big stupid green park. I don't care about any of these people. I particularly don't care about their families. I guess it's meant to be some big epic sacrifice so that everybody you knew in the show is all living in this park. But all I felt was, hey, here's all these characters I don't care about in this big stupid green park, and all of the characters that I loved don't exist. And are now maybe flowers? It just couldn't be more unsatisfying. It renders the entire show pointless. But their families survived, you say to me. Sure. Yes, that's my next biggest issue. How? Why? It doesn't make any sense. If they never existed, they couldn't have had those children. Those children would not exist. They couldn't possibly make it to the original perfect green park timeline. Because if you never existed, then the people you had as kids couldn't also exist. It doesn't make any sense. And I was actually waiting for it to turn into some kind of paradox situation. Like all the kids are running about and they're like, yay, we live in this park. And then like suddenly, I don't know, something happens. They all appear there and they're all like, oh no, we shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. And it creates some kind of paradox and a new different apocalypse begins. And they're like, oh dang, we thought we fixed it. But because we made sure the kids could make it due to whatever nonsense logic, it's created a new different paradox. Which I think would be kind of fun or interesting. I was expecting something, some kind of wrinkle, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even make sense in the logic of the universe. The families being alive is just dumb. It's nonsensical. It just doesn't make any sense. No matter which way you look at it, it just feels like a really lazy attempt to try and make it seem like it's a happy ending, when in fact it's not a happy ending at all. Also, because the season is so truncated and it's so rushed, who are these people? Who is this family members? We've had no moments to actually care about them. There is a little bit of like tangential, well, I care because the characters I care about care, but truly in the actual scheme of the show and the stuff they've shown us, they haven't really made me care about these people. So it's essentially just like 10 strangers running about in the forest being like, yay, we live in a perfect paradise. And I just don't care. In fact, it kind of annoys me. My perfect ending would be pretty in stark contrast and essentially an entirely different ending, but I think it would play into the same thing that they were trying to do, maybe, but then doing a classic final cliffhanger twist is like you have the big thing and the cleansing is coming and the big monster thing consumes them all and they've got to sacrifice themselves and you do a whole thing. And they think that they have done it and they think they've succeeded. And so you cut to the big green park. Like I'm not gonna change too much. So you get to the big green park and you're like, yay, we did it, we saved the world. But you have like our main characters make it there. And maybe the marriageable dust or whatever, the magic alien dust, it's left them so they don't have powers anymore. And they're all living in this timeline and everyone remembers that they exist because they still exist. Because why would they not exist anymore? That's so shockingly dumb. So they're all there in the park and they're like, we did it, that's the end of the show and it's a happy ending. And you're like, wow, that's a oddly happy ending. This show kind of doesn't feel like it should have that kind of happy ending. And then suddenly there's some kind of giant purple explosion or a giant green falcon dragon or something in the horizon where you're like, wow, that is insane and crazy, and it's clearly some kind of new, different apocalypse heading their way, and they're like, what? But isn't this the end of the show? Didn't we stop the universe from doing this all the time? No. And then you get a time travel like portal opens or whatever, and then 5 appears. He's got like a scar and like he's got an eye patch or something, and then like, I don't know, all of them appear. All of the main 7 characters. Luther appears, but maybe he's some kind of like giant CGI monkey. Klaus is there, but this time he's an actual ghost and he's all blue and stuff, etc, etc. All of them are there, but they're absurd, insane, caricature-y, over-the-top, post-apocalyptic versions of themselves. They all land there, they all look at the giant green dragon falcon or whatever I said, and the apocalypse is coming. All our main characters look at them and they just go, yeah, I don't know, we're going to stop the apocalypse again. And they're all just like, ah, dang, damn it, or something funny, you know, having them end on a funny line. And then, boom, cut to black. End the show there, where you're like, hey, do you love that this show is this endless cycle of them trying to stop an apocalypse, but then having to save it, but they're the cause of it, so it's just this endless loop? Yeah, that forever. And I think that would be a really funny, fitting way to end the show. Because, like, I don't know, them saving the world and it just being fine doesn't really fit into, like, the idea of what this show was, and them not existing so that they fix it doesn't work for me at all. So I feel like, with what they set up with this show, that would be the funnest way to end. Because then you just go like, they were so close, they thought they fixed it. Maybe they'll never fix it. Or maybe this is the last time and they would fix it, but we'll never know because the show's over. And so you can just imagine what you want to imagine for the end of the series and a potential 5th season that you'll never see, but you can imagine it. I just think that would be way more interesting and satisfying than them ending the show where they just never existed and a bunch of randos just running about in this utopia park that's all green and it's just stupid. And maybe they're flowers? I don't know. That's something I would like to see. I don't mind a show ending on a cliffhanger like that. I think that'd be pretty funny and fitting to the quirky, silly nature of the show that's just continually doing like a post-apocalypse. I really like the end of season 2, I think it was, where they get back, they're like, we did it! And then the sparrows are there and they're like, no, we didn't. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I would love to know what is your favorite season of the show, what is your favorite moment, who are your favorite characters, and how would have you changed the ending so it wasn't terrible? I would love to know. Hit me up in the comments. Also, if you actually liked the ending, I would like to know why. Like, seriously, I would be interested to hear the reasoning behind why this does work. I would love to change my mind, mildly. Not fully, because I hate this, but yeah, it'd be interesting.